We have the great opportunity to have a little conversation around AI and creative operations and the convergence of the two. Um, Hopefully, it's not going to be a lot of buzzwords. We'd love to stay away from that. I think a lot of people are getting pretty fatigued on AI, and it's very pervasive in our professional and personal lives. But it's my great honor to be here with my colleague Stefan. We've been able to do a few Henry Stewart webinars now, and we always have a really good time. Stefan, will you give a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yes, of course. Hey, everyone. Very nice meeting you. And yeah, Mary, it's I think it's our third or fourth webinar with Henry Stewart, so it's always fun. Yeah, to my person, my background is in advertising. Used to work for TBWA and Omnicom for a long time in solution architecture and client services. So my role at Vertesia is Senior Director of AI Solutions, and I'm really helping clients to streamline their operations into an agentic integration of agentic services in order to help them to better operationalize how AI can in practice be used and applied, and not just all of the many buzzwords we hear out there and all the amazing use cases that we see that are not necessarily grounded in reality. And this is one of the main things we at Vertesia do. We demystify AI and we identify where the value for the client really lies.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I'm Mary Kaplan. Both Steph and I are based in Austin, Texas. And as Steph said, we work at Vertesia. So you might know some of the leadership from Vertesia built one of the most powerful and most well-known DAMS, digital asset management systems on the market, Nuxio. So you may have heard of that. And they have come together and created Vertesia. So a lot of our customers give us a very unique perspective and insight into creative operations, because as you can imagine, working in the digital asset management and media management space from a technology, we have learned a lot and we have been able to help many of our customers put AI into practice. So as Steph said, our goal as a company is to get AI into production that's safe, that's accurate, and that can scale, right? You can scale it across creative operations all the way to, IT and software development. This is how our customers are really operationalizing AI. And hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have some practical steps, ideas, and understanding of how you might want to use AI in your company. A lot of companies that we talk to have a mandate, do AI. And it's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, just do it.
Where do you even start?
What it means.
So if you have that mandate, we would love to help you with that. And hopefully our discussion today can do that. So we are going to start with probably a reality all of us know and know quite intimately. You can call it the content crunch. You can call it increasing pressure on creative teams and creative operations teams, right? We are being told to produce more content faster across more channels, optimize it, make it super personal, right? We also know that if a major pop culture moment happens and we miss it, whether our brand, misinterprets it or is late, that can be expensive. That carries, brand reputation risks. So Steph, can you tell us a little bit about how our customers and how you, have seen some of this content crunch playing out and implications of that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everyone's under this expectation now that now we have the AI tools and we can just create content like never before, right? The quality of the content, the speed to production actually should increase. Everything is low. We're now in this sort of fantasy world where everybody is expecting everything to be created much faster, much better. But the reality really is that creative quality still requires people, right? Still requires skill and expertise. And it's not so much about the efficiency that we see many of our bigger clients looking for, but it is about effectiveness. It is about quality. It is about making sure that you're not we come later to this, that you're not just there to lift and shift the process, but the human is still a very important part of all of this. And where we see the proliferation of the content really is now with all of the sort of programmatically created content that is still needs to be based in a proper concept, in a proper creative brief. And also, it's not enough to just have a generative AI, either picture or video or image or text, to just create something into the blue, because we see that with many of the traditional channels out there where content creation just got totally out of hand. And in the end, the people who receive this will be deciding what is effective, right, and what really works. And we do see this with many of our big clients, that their creative teams are originally sort of stuck in this increased production mode, but they're not really being helped, right? It is just like, it's not just create more. It is about the quality control that needs to be part of that. And that's not just a GPT creating images, and that's not just using a Gemini or a Kling or a video generation. That's really helping to understand what elements of your creative concept really make the mark, really make it different. And then there's also still the friction points, right? So yes, people have started using AI in order to create content, but still all of that needs to be coordinated. That all of that still needs to be arranged within a team and multinational teams to actually approve and review. So there's so many different components to this, which actually make the teams have a lot more pressure. That we see that there's so many potentials where AI can be used in a very powerful way, which is not necessarily just generating content, but which helps to organize and orchestrate the content creation itself.
Yes, I think you explained it really well when we were prepping for this session, right? It's not about efficiency, it's about effectiveness. I think efficiency and AI get tied together a lot, which can be a misnomer or misunderstanding, right? And the true power, can go way beyond that in terms of helping making creative content more effective. And we'll get into some examples of that. So where does AI fit, right? There is, as I'm sure you hear, maybe your inbox is full, no shortage of AI tools on the market, right? But just buying a tool and even adopting a tool is not transforming your business or your workflows in creative operations. So where might AI actually, belong in a creative operations workflow? And if I have the hammer of AI, is everything a nail?
Right. Good. I mean, there's so many different areas, and primarily teams always think about generative AI being used, of course, in image generation or video generation. But really, these are all sort of isolated solutions, right? They're point solutions that help you to deal with a certain aspect of it. And most creatives working, of course, with a Firefly or Gemini these days, Nano Banana, it's one of the great models out there. But is that really the answer to your solution? Because again, it comes down to an individual using a tool versus deploying that for a team, deploying that for an enterprise, and also having the right governance in place, right? Many creatives had the moment of realizing, like, oh wait, we're exposing client sensitive data by using a certain model, using a certain tool. So it is really important that when you look at this here, these are all the different areas where you should really understand the bigger picture of how AI should be deployed as a central instrument to orchestrate all of that. And then, of course, everybody has or brings to the table like a new tool that they've seen somewhere on the news, somewhere on Instagram. They try it out. They think this is valuable to my team. And we've been seeing this before, because AI is software, just like anything before. But this proliferation of all these individual point solutions doesn't help you bring your overall strategy forward in a way. It really comes down to not doing a lift and shift and necessarily breaking everything apart and trying to solve everything by smaller tools. but really thinking about where does how can I connect all of this together? How can
Yeah.
I bring this into a workflow that makes sense?
Hmm.
And this is where we're seeing that many creatives are still, or creative operations are still stuck with the ideation execution tools, but they struggle to connect the bigger picture. The key question is really, how do you bring them all together, move away from these sort of half-baked solutions and really and experimentation, because this is where most people are still stuck at, and really bring this into a coherent approach that brings in governance, that brings in project management, that brings in approval, that brings in all of the different points that constitute to the creative process. And in the end, and this is one of the biggest things, is really you want to close the loop. This is like we organize this here in a circle, right? Because this is sort of the way that at least from creative brief to ideation to content creation, in the end, you want to measure the effectiveness of things. And that should go back into your next round, into your next campaign. But reality is these things take time.
Right.
So what we are seeing with our clients today, we started picking on some of these points in this circle and started working on them, but already with the idea, how can we bring the post-campaign analysis at the very end back to the beginning, and then have the ideation process supported by AI, but also have the things like the market adaptation already in mind. How can we support creatives during the process to already check the necessary boxes for a cultural adaptation, for example, into another country, versus having to do that all sequentially, which is the traditional workflow, and then having many people having many opinions and just slowing it down, friction points, right?
Yeah.
And this is where AI can really help in connecting the dots and making sure you're hitting your marks during the process and not as an afterthought.
Definitely. Yeah. And I would say, one thing that we do a bit differently, we don't just throw tools over the fence and see what works. We help our customers decide, where are the quick hits, the low hanging fruit, the big bets? How do we put these on a roadmap to start adopting, and putting these use cases into production? Because it's different for every company. Every company has, perfected workflows and workflows where they need some help. So, well,
Yeah, the
thank
value
you.
might not be the image generation, right? That's
Yeah.
what many people think, right? Or the text
Mhm.
generation. The value might be in the quality control. The value might be in the approval process, right? The value might be in finding the right conceptual approach and synthetic testing. Just moving over to the next slide, maybe.
Yes,
How we're supporting these processes.
definitely. Yeah. Um, when it comes to AI, we're being honest. I certainly have a lot of fears around it still, and I work in it every day, right? Um, there's fears around job displacement, there's fears around brand safety, quality control, and this AI slop that a lot of us are starting to see, on our feeds. How do you work with customers to mitigate some of these fears when it comes to AI rollout?
It is so important to bring a number of people to the table when you think about how you want to deploy AI in your organization or within even with your creative operations team. The fear of job displacement, I think when I'm looking at the way that my personal way of working since I joined Vertesia has changed, it's that my skills, my expertise, and my knowledge is the most valuable piece still. Because what the agentic AI allows you to do is to surely create more, but you are still in the driver's seat. You are still the one who has to take the decisions. And this is something where many people are afraid they will be removed from that. I'm telling you, your skills will become even more important and more valuable, right? Because just creating more doesn't mean that the quality gets better. The opposite is true, right? With all the noise that's getting created. So, however, of course, you need to involve the people, and just like with anything before, you will have the smartest people in the room who will now be the loudest people as well, claiming that they are the AI experts. Everyone's an expert these days because the technology makes it so easy. But it really comes down to doing this as a team and really understanding and deciding together where the value is generated versus just like doing something for the sake of having a cool new technology that can help you.
Yeah.
Um, the brand safety and control is a huge point, and this is why we keep bringing it up. It is really making sure that you are able to filter out from all the content that gets generated, filter out what really works, and
Yeah.
taking that to the test and having validation built into the tool itself. And I mean, at Vertesia, this is kind of our bread and butter here. It's not just having a GPT, creating an agent and then create you some output, but really all the process thinking that goes into that, all the quality assurance that goes into that. So I mean, yeah, the quality is a huge elephant in the room as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we see that we need to hold ourselves to a high standard in order to stand out from the noise.
Yes, exactly. And because of our heritage and our leadership's heritage and having a deep background and understanding in content management and asset management, how we approach content and really, content assets, it's the fuel for AI, right? Like the gas to your car. So having content that is prepared, accessible, easily understood by AI agents helps to better ensure more accurate outputs, right? And that it adheres to your brand and that it's not AI slop because it's not generic. So if that's something that you've been working on and you've started experimenting with AI tools and you're not liking the results you get, you are not alone. AI can really make up some funny outputs, but to really get AI that works in production, it does take a very pragmatic and important role is your content and what you feed to the AI model. So real world results. We work with a lot of customers that work in creative operations to some degree. And so we wanted to talk to you about a few different example use cases that we are working on with our customers and what we're seeing, some incremental, improvements on their workflows and feedback from them. So Steph, do you want to kick us off with maybe concept validation and testing?
Yeah, I mean, this is where I'm getting really excited. It's when we're getting use case from customers and we start to understand like where's the value in this. Concept validation testing really comes back to the previous chart where we said like where do you identify, where can AI really help you? Concept validation, really think about scenario where you might only have an idea, right? A concept, and you wanna know how an audience might react to that. Many of you probably have already heard about synthetic copy testing. But this is more than just telling a GPT again or a Gemini to create like a persona and throw it at it. It comes with a lot of different nuances. How you include a cultural research, for example, how that persona is reacting to certain signals that you might have in your concept, which you might not even be aware of. It is really sort of validating all of these things through the lens of an audience, and then being able to quickly make adjustments and run it again. And in a traditional scenario, copy testing takes a while because you need that time to really consolidate the feedback and then reincorporate that into the next iteration. You want to do A/B testing, right? So typically you would pre-conceptualize things. You have two concepts, you expose them, and then within a week or so, you get your feedback consolidated via the company, whoever does that for you. So with synthetic copy testing, you do that within minutes, right? You get an idea. What is really important here is that you not just rely on the foundational models, as we call them. This is basically taking whatever the training of a specific model gives you as a response, but you're also feeding in specific data sources that you might have about your audiences from a sales force, from any primary audience data that you can bring into that in order to inform the persona that you're creating, how to react to that. So we see our customers using this very successfully. We have this validated by a number of teams from our clients who said like, hey, it took us weeks to validate a concept, and you guys basically have landed on pretty much the same outputs within 15 minutes. It's but it's an art. It's an art to actually do that, and it's not just enough to run a GPT agent again. It really comes to a number of things. Concept validation saves you weeks in coordination, collecting the insights, evaluations, and then do reruns. So it is really also grounded in objectivity a lot more. Because you get access to a lot more consolidated opinions than maybe just the three people you have in the room, which are hopefully representative of your audience. But you're able to actually tweak that way faster, and also take this sort of personal bias that all of us have, and take that take that out of the equation and make it more an objective feedback.
Yeah, I think that's really it's fascinating. And one of our customers, a major global retailer, has taken that and then kind of combined it with market adaptation and localization. Can you tell us a little bit about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the one really leads to the next, right? Where the first concept validation you really do at the very early stage, where you might have your strategic positioning and you want to try out some things. But now with the market adaptation localization, you have landed on a concept that already ran through all your testings. But now you want to take that to a number of markets. And typically you would do an adaptation process where you have like a master asset or a master concept, a creative platform that you would have built. And now you want to translate that into different countries, right? But translation is exactly what you should not do, right? You really want to do a cultural adaptation. And that is not just a language translation or maybe replacing a key visual. This is about identifying the nuances of how a population in a certain country would perceive your brand, would perceive certain elements, would perceive a context that you're creating within your communication, your creative campaign, right? So in our concrete cases where our clients start using that, we see that their traditional workflow, and let's say you have an adaptation across 15 countries, that will take you something between 4 and 6 weeks with a big international team, local experts, a lot of forth and back, a lot of friction points to coordinate that, to consolidate feedback. And then there's also this component of fatigue, right? I cannot imagine that a creative director, after working 10 years on a client doing the 1500s adaptation for Italy, is still there with the same objectivity as they used to do it in the very beginning. So there's a certain fatigue also in all of that. So what we're seeing is that if you do that really for 10, 15 countries, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. With the way that we conceptualized and understood the process and removed friction points, we're able to give you a complete assessment within 15 minutes of a run. That is, of course, a bigger process of cultural research, finding how a culture is celebrating Christmas, for example. What's the importance, or what's the role of the grandmother, right? All of these things that are fine nuances, which are not just in the translation, which come back to the quality point, which come back to how do you orchestrate, how do you use the elements, and how do you transcreate that between cultures versus just a localization that would do a translation. So yeah, this is huge. This saves a lot of time. And again, these two things work together. And there's some really good examples where we found this working for holiday transitions, right? Or to identify family dynamics. And we can do that at any level. You can tap into each of these tools. You're not bound again to a streamlined process that begins at A and ends at Z. You can inter-exchange in between. When you feel that the right tool is required, it's available to you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're breaking up this sort of stringent process that you would have in creative operations, and you're able to jump ahead, leap ahead, and then come back to the previous one with insights and optimizations that you've done.
And I think it's been fascinating for me learning about, how different cultures approach the notion of luxury, right? If you're trying to market to Parisians, and the notion of luxury versus Swedish people, very different.
Yeah,
um,
you gave a
it,
few webinars on this, Mary,
mhm,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it is really this idea of being able to reverse engineer a creative brief and then
Mhm.
applying that to a cultural concept assessment, and then creating audience persona specifically tailored for that case. And then being able to make a risk assessment, right? Do sort of a scoring and get a full set of recommendations on how to adjust your concept, how to adjust actually your film, your storyboard, wherever you give in, and really do this culture transcreation versus just a translation with adjustments.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really don't like it when I join sessions or webinars and I never get practical next steps, right? It's like I'm excited about the topic, but then what do I do next? So hopefully, we have put a few steps together that you can take and really start, implementing AI in your creative operations. So if you're interested, if you have a mandate, again, do AI, where can you start? Well, we always ask our customers, like, what do you want to achieve, right? Like, what is the goal, even if not the end goal, but a goal. So we, suggest to our customers that they audit their current creative workflows honestly. I don't know, Steph, if you had anything that you wanted to add on that point.
Um, no, keep
Okay.
going. I think it stands very well for itself.
Yeah. I mean, look at your creative workflows, look where there's friction, look what's working really well, right? We talk about this a lot. The power of AI is incredible, and it is not always necessary, right? Sometimes you have a workflow that's working beautifully as is. You don't need to make it agentic. But there are opportunities probably where your workflows aren't. And don't just throw a workflow into AI. Think about re-engineering the workflow. And again, that starts with the outcome that you want to achieve. Um, AI is a software. It's a software. It's not a magic tool. It is software. So don't forget the basic importance of um, project management and implementing softwares when implementing AI.
Yeah,
Think about
change
it
management.
programmatically, right? Change management. These things are really important. And again, this speaks to not just having different point solutions and tools for every thing that you might need to do. That could make your IT landscape really complicated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right?
I mean,
So,
look, in creative teams, everybody has now 10 different tools that they're all amazed by, but you bring that back into the enterprise and you realize, oh, this won't fly. There's so
mhm.
many flags on security, on cost, on does it fit into our framework? Will the client allow this? So you really need to make sure you understand how you bring these things together and how you're finding hopefully a platform that allows you to in, in, incrementally move forward rather than trying to replace everything at once.
Yes, yeah. Sequencing your steps, mapping out your use cases, auditing your creative workflows. These are where you're going to really be able to make a roadmap for yourself of implementing AI. Talk to someone who's done it. That could be your own IT team or your finance team. If you have at your company, you have different departments who've implemented AI and are seeing success. It could be a partner that you work with. It could be a solution provider like Vertesia. Talk to someone who's done it. And as our customer said, do your pilots, prove them, scale what works, and then close the loops. This is not a checkbox. Oh, we do all these steps and then we're done implementing AI. AI is always changing. The capacity of the models and the agents and the software providers are always changing. So it will be that iterative process of continually implementing and scaling out AI for your business.
The beauty in all of this is the roadmap is yours. You are not bound into being locked into Adobe's idea of what your process should be, right? You are now able to claim the ownership. It comes with a certain technological debt, but this is where AI is making everything easier, because now you're able to develop things very quickly and reiterate. You are not locked into a vendor roadmap anymore, right? You are the smith of your own fortune in a way. And this is where I think the biggest opportunity lies for companies that had to buy into very costly, very heavy software contracts out there, just in order to get their basics checked. And we see that with many customers, they have so many point solutions out there, and they all promise them that they would all work together and have API connectivity. But the reality is the technological debt in order to make that happen is so high that in most cases, somebody came in, they said, like, we need to deploy solution X. And yes, it is running, but it's not even half baked. Maybe 10% of that solution have ever been implemented, maybe project management, maybe creative tools. Nothing is really integrated. With AI, you now have the ability to create an orchestration layer that really helps you to rethink your process from the beginning. And that's what we mean by saying, like, don't just lift and shift something that exists right now, bringing it over, having an AI replace that, but rethink the role of the human in the loop, rethink the role of what you would be able to do if you had the ability of what you have now. I mean, this takes thinking, this takes brainstorming,
Yes.
this is also breaking the rules and challenging how you've been doing things so far. Because let's be honest, a lot of the processes you're doing today are historic, and you're just dynamically moving around that. But it's never the way that it's planned on paper. That never ever works. But enter the stage for agentic AI that can help you make those decisions in real time now. So
Excellent.
it's very interesting.
And we'd love to end on, well, the phrase we have in Texas might be the pie in the sky. But, if you could put your magic thinking cap on and say, what does the creative supply chain, Steph, to you look like in 3 to 5 years? What are some thoughts you have?
The landscape is shifting so quickly. We see traditional solution providers being challenged by this new technology. We see in Adobe getting challenged. We see Premiere and traditional image Photoshop being challenged by now generative tools that can just do it like working with an illustrator. I can talk to it, right? I don't have to understand all these complicated menus and functions and features. I have an agent that can do that for me or work with it for me. So I think we're going to see a shift in the traditional landscape of software technologies towards something that allows you to more integrate smaller, more agile functionalities. I think we're going to see a shift away. For example, you said it before, we come from Nuxeo, from a DAM ECM background. I see that will still be existing, but the traditional promise of, like, hey, everybody use the digital asset management, that's going to shift its role to something that's more like an object and a metadata store that lives somewhere in your ecosystem, but servicing the content there where the people work, where the people are. And we've seen versions of that with integrating AI tools into tools like Photoshop, into tools like Illustrator. But I think it will really be the combination of different tools interoperating and orchestrated and arranged by an efficient AI agency that will help you to really connect those dots. It will not be, because many people still copy and paste, right? It's still so many places where you download a file from here and then you upload it into there. And you still have to do all the manual work, even though we have all of these amazing tools. I think we're going to see a lot more interoperability between the tools. Yeah, let's see where the cost side of things are going. I
Yeah.
think the big software providers will have a hard time because AI will be chipping off more and more of their value propositions and delivering all-in-one solutions
Yeah.
that can be easily integrated, way more easily integrated into existing ecosystems,
Hmm.
and that will bring it all together.
And I like what you shared was that what's not going to change is you are still always going to need the creative brief, right? Like that's not going
Oh,
to go away. Yeah.
and,
Like,
and again, the skill, the experience of the human is still what will be driving the quality. The AI is just creating content for without brain, right, and heart.
yeah,
It is still
exactly.
the quality of the content will be the driver of effectiveness and success.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt we will still be there in 10, 15 years from now and doing a different job, but doing it at a way more abstracted level. But your expertise, skill, and knowledge is still what's driving all of this.
Excellent. Well, let's jump into some questions. We've had a few come through. Let me just jump into that. Um, so, Steph, we've talked about brand safety and AI slop and, brand guidelines and checks. What are some examples of safety checks that you've seen our customers do to protect their
Mhm.
brand against AI slop or something outside of their
Yeah,
guidelines?
actually, that's one I can refer to directly because we had another webinar with one of our big clients, Mad Engine, with Gary a while ago. And what we're doing for them is basically it's like they have a huge repository of Mad Engine is creating licensed art garments, I want to say. They create all sorts of merchandise, t-shirts, and so on. And they have to stick to very strict rules that are given to them by the licensors, like a Disney, for example, or the NBA, whatever that is. So what really helped them here is to integrate is to have the AI help the creative process by helping them identify what are the brand guidelines, what are the style guides, what are the things that you are allowed to do way before they get into production, way before they submit it to the licensor in order to get an approval, because these approval processes take weeks until you get a feedback, but then you're already into a production deadline that is next week. So we see that the quality assurance really is one of the key components where we're working with a number of different methodologies, of course, visual identification of elements, written brand guidelines, but also agentic processes, identifying and reasoning about concepts, and really using a number of different tools, not just one, in order to get like a pre-flight check. Um, and we can do that for a number of different media. We can do that for videos, for text, and also for image, of course, these days.
Hmm.
Um, I hope that answers the question.
Definitely. Yeah. We had another question come in. What's the best use of AI in an approval process that involves several senior stakeholders? So I want to pause for a second and talk about just workflows in general, because there are so many flavors of workflows. And so you have fully autonomous agentic workflows where an AI agent does it, right? It moves down a process, does the work, gives you output. And then you have what we call deterministic workflows, or programmatic workflows that have predefined steps. You always want it to do this, 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 this. These still exist for a lot of companies in a lot of use cases. You want it to always do these sequential steps. So I would say for an AI-based workflow that needs several different approvals and has a very distinct approval process from key stakeholders, utilize a programmatic workflow. A tool that we just released is the ability to take a written workflow, like a Microsoft Visio, or even something that you draw out the sequential steps, take a picture of that, upload it into Vertesia, and it makes the workflow for you. It can honestly be that simple. So as many ways as our customers work, there is a workflow to match that, right? It doesn't, not everything needs to be fully autonomous with no human intervention, right? You can make a very programmatic workflow, multiple approval process workflow. So, Mike, I hope I answered that question. Did you want to add anything, Steph?
It is really those two extremes. Either you have a fully programmatic workflow, which has been planned out, you have a new work front, it's exactly doing the same thing over and over again until something changes and the workflow breaks, right? And this is also why, as humans, we're putting our workflow down on paper, but really what defines the special sauce, the special ingredient is always the human flexibility in order to digress from the workflow, in order to find a solution, right? So, and this is where the other extreme is an autonomous workflow where an agent would be doing all of it. So with Vertesia, we can now, we merge the two together. You can define a programmatic workflow, but with agentic supervision at certain points where you need them, where the agent is given a certain scope within which it can take decisions, where it can do maybe research and reasoning about an outcome that has changed or an input that has changed, and then taken a different route. But the human in the loop is always part of that. So coming back to the previous one, like how do you involve stakeholders into this? We would make sure that all the validations have been done before it goes to the stakeholder level, right? And this is something where if you have a team having to do that constantly, this just creates a lot of friction. So we're helping the teams to prepare the quality of the outputs before they go to the stakeholders. And this is where agentic validation is super helpful.
Yeah, yeah. We have one more question, but please, if you have more, submit them to the chat. How do you measure the success of your pilots so that you know when to roll them out more broadly? That's a big question. I think every customer, every use case is going to be a little bit different. But some of the things we talked about, Steph, is about, how often you might want to test that and see if you like the results every single time. Would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
The one thing is agentic testing, right? You can just to see that the workflow doesn't break and that different curveballs can be thrown at it. That's what we do with agentic testing the software basically. But then the most important piece is the user acceptance testing. And Mary, to your point previously, right? It is most important that your people are confident in using this tool. Otherwise, they will not use it, right? It's not going to happen. They will go bypass and do Excel again and send it around via email, right? And break in the whole idea of you automating anything. I think that the best way to test something is to do it in smaller groups before you give it to a larger audience, but then also stay open to it. And you cannot just say test it 100 times. Certain workflows are tested 300 times, right? Yeah. Just to make sure it's really bulletproof. But it so depends on the use case, Mary. It's hard to give like a generic answer on this.
Right, exactly. Yeah.